The golden glow of the New York skyline shimmered in the windows of Hudson First National Bank. Inside, the plush interior with its marble floors and mahogany desks echoed with the low hum of business. It was just another weekday afternoon and Peter Holloway, the bank's senior loan manager, was reviewing applications in his neatly organized office. Peter was known for his strict, no-nonsense approach to loans. He didn't care if someone walked in wearing a tailored suit or tattered jeans. If they didn't meet the financial criteria, the loan wasn't happening. He had built his reputation on fairness and diligence, never granting special privileges based on status. A young man, around 19 or 20, walked into the bank wearing a navy blue hoodie, well-fitted jeans, and sneakers. His golden blonde hair was slightly tousled and he carried himself with an air of quiet confidence. Unlike the usual applicants who often fumbled with paperwork or looked nervous, this one seemed entirely at ease. He approached the receptionist and spoke with a polite but firm tone. "I'd like to apply for a personal business loan." The receptionist, a woman named Clara, gave him a warm smile. "Of course. Do you have an appointment, sir?" "No, I was hoping to meet with someone today." "It's a time-sensitive matter," the young man responded. Clara nodded, glanced at the schedule, and saw that Peter had an opening in 10 minutes. "Let me check with Mr. Holloway. Please take a seat." The young man sat down, casually scrolling through his phone. Meanwhile, Clara walked into Peter's office. "There's a young man out there requesting a business loan appointment. He doesn't have an appointment, but he seems confident. Should I send him in?" Peter sighed. "Did he say what the business was?" "No, just that it was time-sensitive." Peter tapped his pen on his desk. "All right, send him in." A moment later, the young man walked in and extended a hand. "Good afternoon, Mr. Holloway. I'm Barron." Peter shook his hand. "Nice to meet you, Barron. Please have a seat." "So, what brings you here today?" "I'd like to apply for a business loan," Barron replied, sitting down. Peter flipped open a fresh loan application. "All right. What kind of business are you looking to start?" "A luxury technology firm. I already have a prototype for an AI-driven security system and I need funding to expand it into production." Peter raised an eyebrow. "That's ambitious. Do you have a business plan, financial projections, or any collateral?" Barron smiled. "I have the numbers, but I was hoping to discuss them with you before finalizing." Peter glanced at him skeptically. "I appreciate your confidence, but banks don't grant loans on ambition alone. We need solid financials, assets, and a strong business model." Barron nodded. "I understand. Would it help if I told you that I have substantial backing and connections?" Peter sighed. "Look, Mr. Barron, Just Barron," the young man interjected. "All right, Barron. The bank doesn't grant loans based on connections. We need proof of financial stability." Peter pushed a loan application across the desk. "Fill this out. I'll need your credit history, proof of income, and business financials. If everything checks out, we can talk." Barron took the form with a knowing smile. "Sounds fair." As Barron walked out, Peter leaned back in his chair. Just another kid with big dreams but no financial backing, he thought. He had seen this story play out too many times before. What Peter didn't know, however, was that he had just denied a loan to the son of the most powerful man in the country. Barron Trump sat in a quiet corner of a coffee shop across the street from Hudson First National Bank, casually sipping his espresso. He glanced down at the loan application, amused by Peter Holloway's rigid stance. Unlike most loan applicants, Barron didn't need the money. He simply wanted to experience what it was like to go through the process without using his family name as leverage. Barron had always been determined to build something on his own without relying on the Trump legacy. His AI-driven security startup was promising, with early investors already showing interest, but he wanted to see if he could secure traditional funding without his surname influencing the decision. After filling out the necessary details, Barron returned to the bank and handed the paperwork to Peter. Peter took the application and skimmed through it. The financial history was unusual. There were no conventional employment records, no clear credit history, and no documented assets under Barron's name. It was almost as if the young man had lived entirely outside the banking system. Peter sighed and set the papers down. "Barron, I'll be honest with you. Based on this application, I can't approve your loan." Barron leaned back in his chair, unfazed. "Why not?" Peter steepled his fingers. "You don't have any established credit history. No proof of consistent income. No listed assets. From a financial institution's perspective, that makes you a high-risk applicant." Barron chuckled. "What if I told you I could bring in investment funds within a week?" Peter frowned. "That's great, but banks operate on documented proof, not promises." Barron nodded, appreciating the banker's professionalism. "Fair enough. So you're rejecting my application? Peter hesitated for a second, feeling a twinge of doubt. The kid was confident, too confident for someone in his position. But rules were rules. Yes, I'm afraid I can't approve it. Barron stood up, slipping his hands into his pockets. All right, Mr. Holloway. I respect that. With a slight smirk, he turned and walked out of the office, leaving Peter feeling oddly unsettled. There was something about this young man, something different. That evening, Peter sat in his office, finishing up paperwork when Clara, the receptionist, poked her head in. Mr. Holloway, you might want to check the news. Peter, distracted, looked up. Why? Clara handed him her phone, and Peter's eyes widened at the headline on the screen. President Donald Trump's youngest son, Barron Trump, set to launch multi-million-dollar AI security firm. Peter's heart nearly stopped. He quickly scanned the article. Barron Trump had been working on a top-secret security project for months, backed by influential investors. The White House had just released a statement confirming his involvement in the tech sector. Peter's stomach dropped. The Barron who had walked into his office that afternoon was Barron Trump. For the first time in his long banking career, Peter Holloway felt like he had made a grave mistake. Peter Holloway's pulse pounded as he reread the headline. He couldn't believe it. He had rejected a loan application from Barron Trump, the son of the President of the United States. Worse, he had dismissed him like any other unqualified applicant, unaware of who he really was. Clara, who had been watching his reaction closely, smirked. So, still feeling good about that rejection? Peter exhaled sharply and rubbed his temples. I had no idea. He never said his last name. He didn't drop any hints. He just acted like any regular kid trying to start a business. Clara chuckled. Well, he is a regular kid. Just one with the most powerful family name in America. Peter groaned and leaned back in his chair. This is bad. Really bad. He knew how the media worked. If this got out, Hudson First National Bank could be painted as incompetent or worse, as a bank that turned away promising young entrepreneurs, even those with presidential ties. His bosses wouldn't be happy. The thought of his regional director, Mr. Davenport, getting wind of this made Peter sweat. He had built his entire career on diligence and fair decision-making, but this was a mistake that could haunt him. Just as he was contemplating damage control, his office phone rang. The caller ID flashed private number. Peter hesitated before answering. Hello, this is Peter Holloway. A deep voice responded, Mr. Holloway, this is David Richardson from the White House Communications Office. Are you available for a brief conversation? Peter's stomach flipped. The White House? Yes, of course, Peter stammered. There was a pause. Then Richardson continued, we understand that Barron Trump applied for a business loan at your bank earlier today. Peter swallowed hard. That's correct. And you denied it? Peter felt beads of sweat forming on his forehead. Yes, but only because his application didn't meet the standard banking requirements. I had no idea. Richardson interrupted, his tone neutral but firm. We appreciate the bank's adherence to protocol. However, Barron deliberately did not use his last name for this process. He wanted to see if he could secure a loan on his own merits. Peter exhaled in relief. So he wasn't in trouble? Richardson continued, Barron told us he was impressed with your professionalism. He actually respects the fact that you didn't cave under pressure or favoritism. Peter blinked. He does? Yes. That being said, I believe there will be some increased attention on your bank. You may want to be prepared for media inquiries. Peter felt his stomach drop again. I understand. Good. Have a nice day, Mr. Holloway. The call ended and Peter stared at his phone in disbelief. Just then, his office door flew open and his boss, Mr. Davenport, stormed in, red-faced and furious. Peter, what the hell did you do? The media storm was about to begin. Peter Holloway barely had time to process the White House call before his boss, Mr. Davenport, slammed the door behind him. The man was in his mid-50s, bald and perpetually angry, but this was a new level of fury. You rejected a loan for Barron Trump? Davenport bellowed, slamming a newspaper onto Peter's desk. Peter flinched and looked down. The front page of the New York Post blared. Bank manager denies loan to president's son, unaware who he is. Peter groaned. The article detailed how Barron Trump had applied for a loan anonymously only to be rejected. It painted the situation in a somewhat neutral light, emphasizing Barron's attempt to go through a normal process without using his name. But the headlines across social media were far less kind. Police Garlight bank snubs Barron Trump, nepotism denied or discrimination? Money egg Trump heir rejected by Wall Street banker, does the system work for the rich? Fire bank manager's career over? The loan that shocked America. Peter felt dizzy. This is getting out of control. Davenport rubbed his forehead in frustration. We've had 50 phone calls this morning. The press wants a statement. Shareholders are asking if we deliberately turned away a high-profile client. Even some customers are closing their accounts, saying we are anti-business. Peter exhaled sharply. Sir, I was just following protocol. He had no financial history, no listed assets. I don't care, Peter. Davenport exploded. You should have used your brain. At least asked him more questions. Do you have any idea what kind of business this bank could have gotten from a Trump-endorsed partnership? Peter remained silent. He wasn't about to argue with his boss. Davenport sighed and leaned against the desk. The board is meeting in an hour. They want to discuss damage control. In the meantime, prepare a public statement. Peter looked up. A statement? Yes. Something that makes us look less stupid. Meanwhile, at Trump Tower, Barron Trump sat in his penthouse suite scrolling through the news on his laptop. He had expected his loan rejection to be a minor incident, maybe something to joke about over dinner. But the media had turned it into a national story. His phone buzzed. It was his father. Barron hesitated before answering. Hey, Dad. Donald Trump's voice was as unmistakable as ever. Son, what the hell is going on? Barron sighed. It's not a big deal, Dad. Not a big deal. The media is saying banks are turning down Trumps now. We can't let that stand. Barron rolled his eyes. I didn't even tell them my last name. I wanted to do it on my own. Trump scoffed. Look, I respect the hustle. I really do. But you've got to understand you carry the Trump brand. The second they find out who you are, it's a news story. Barron shook his head. This wasn't about the family name. I just wanted to see if I could get a loan like any other person. The media frenzy had reached a boiling point. News networks debated whether Barron Trump's rejection was an example of banks sticking to their principles or an embarrassing mistake that could cost Hudson First National Bank dearly. Meanwhile, Peter Holloway sat nervously in the bank's boardroom surrounded by senior executives including his boss, Mr. Davenport. The White House hasn't condemned us yet, said one executive, scrolling through his tablet. But we need to act fast. Our stock is down 3% since this morning. Peter cleared his throat. Barron Trump himself hasn't made any statement, right? Davenport shook his head. Not yet, but that could change at any moment. And it did. As if on cue, Clara rushed into the boardroom holding up her phone. Barron just posted a video. Everyone in the room turned toward her. She tapped the screen and Barron Trump appeared on a live stream. Barron Trump's statement. Sitting casually in his penthouse, Barron spoke directly to the camera. Hey everyone, I just wanted to clear the air about this whole bank loan thing. Some of you might have seen the headlines saying I was rejected for a loan at Hudson First National Bank. He chuckled. First of all, let's be real, it's not that big of a deal. The bank didn't do anything wrong. The loan manager, Mr. Holloway, was just following the rules. I didn't provide credit history, I didn't list assets, he had no reason to approve me. Barron leaned forward. In fact, I respect the guy for treating me like any other applicant. He didn't give me special treatment just because I'm a Trump. And honestly, that's how it should be. The comments section of the live stream exploded. Fire, Barron keeping it real. Respect. Clapping hands, finally a Trump that gets how normal people live. Faced with tears of joy, Peter Holloway just went from fired to promoted. Barron continued, so, to all the media outlets blowing this up, calm down. No one's getting sued, no one's getting fired. If anything, this whole thing proves that the banking system isn't just bending over for rich kids. He smirked. Oh, and Mr. Holloway? No hard feelings. If I ever need a mortgage, I know where to find you. He ended the video with a casual wave, and within minutes, the internet was flooded with positive reactions. Back at the bank, Peter Holloway let out a long breath, the weight lifting off his shoulders. Davenport, still gripping his coffee cup tightly, muttered, well, that was unexpected. Another executive chuckled. Actually, that was the best PR we could have hoped for. Barron Trump just turned this whole situation in our favor. Davenport sighed and turned to Peter. You got lucky, Holloway. Real lucky. Peter smirked. Or maybe I just did my job. Davenport rolled his eyes but nodded. Fine. But next time, maybe ask a few more questions before you reject a future president's kid. Epilogue, the aftermath. In the days that followed, the media firestorm cooled down. Hudson First National Bank saw an unexpected surge in new account sign-ups, with people praising them for treating everyone equally. Peter Holloway even received an anonymous thank you note in the mail. Inside was a single business card with just 2 words printed on it. Barron Trump. A smirk played on Peter's lips. Maybe he hadn't made a mistake after all.